helping couples heal by building trust, cultivating intimacy, and enhancing communications. Her book, Marital Peace, is a valuable tool to support couples through the challenges of marriage. Her therapeutic approach is influenced by worldwide training in Brazil, Mexico, London, and Hades. Watch for her Fridays on Roku and YouTube. That's Couples Therapy with Dr. Loa Lewis.
Welcome, everybody, to the Couples Therapy Show. I am Dr. Lewis, the founder of this show. I'm so excited to have this conversation today about communication with Miss Tanisha Buffington.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing great. So we are going to have a quick break and then we will get right into communication.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah.
Our often repeated prayers,
Although we may be different,
Yet similar.
as we reach out to our Creator,
we offer all praise.
And we seek forgiveness.
we ask for peace in our hearts, in our minds, and in our spirits. Amen.
Welcome, everybody. We are back and we are going to dive right into communication. So, Tanitria, tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you do as we get into this topic.
So again, my name is Tanitria Buffington. I am a licensed professional counselor, and what I do concerning communication is really to teach skills and provide an atmosphere for couples to be able to feel safe enough to let their walls down, to communicate effectively, honestly, openly. And again, that skills piece is important because so many times when we're talking about communication, it's from a very emotional place. And if you don't have effective skills, sometimes even with the best intentions, our message is all misconstrued. We've all experienced that. That's not what I said. That's not what I meant. And so what I do is just to help teach couples how to effectively communicate. And it's fun and challenging.
That's what I was about to say. I know sometimes it can be challenging when you feel like either you feel like your spouse isn't listening or you feel like you're not being heard. Like, I know that can be a challenge. What would you say are maybe the top mistakes that you see that couples make when it comes to communication?
Ooh, I would say probably the top mistakes I would see is defensiveness, coming in already guarded, ready to defend yourself, blaming the other person. Of course, we have the classic not listening. And when I say not listening, meaning I'm trying to get my point across and I'm not really trying to understand what my partner is saying. And so, one of my favorite books is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of those habits includes listening to or seeking to understand and then to be understood. And most of us go into those communication issues trying to be understood first, and we forget all about the understanding piece. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then of course, those small dynamic things such as tone of voice, attitude, the nonverbals, all of that type of stuff starts to play into that. And so, yeah, communication can be a huge issue for couples. With effective communication, it can be a beautiful life. And with ineffective communication, we can have drama from day one.
Oh, you are speaking. Now, what do you do if your mate is just getting on your nerves? You just like, oh my God, like I just want to throw you outside. Like you getting on my last nerve. What do you do to like stay in that place of listening?
You know what? I'm all about taking a break and saying, hey, you've given me a lot of information. I need to process my own feelings. And here's the thing I teach, and I teach this really when I work with children all the way to adults. Be aware of your body. Your body will tell you, hey, I am at my max capacity. And so when your body starts to tell you this, this joker is getting on my last nerve. If he says the wrong thing, if she says this one more time, I am going to scream. I am going to say something. You have that right to say, hey, I need a break just to kind of center myself, to gather my thoughts. I'm not leaving you. And that's important because sometimes couples are afraid if we don't continue this conversation right now, we'll never get to it, because that's been a pattern in their relationship. One person is always avoiding that conversation. So they are terrified. If I drop it now, we won't ever come back to this. So they get caught up. And so being able to say, hey, I need this break, but I promise you, and of course you have to follow through. We're going to come back. Just give me a 5 or 10 minute break. When they come back, typically that heart rate is down. Their thinking is clearer. Our physical bodies have a huge response or a reaction when we're upset. And so when we can get our physical bodies calm, typically we start to think a little more rationally. We remember we actually like this person that we're married to. We remember that they're not our enemy, and so we put the guns down. But it does require us to calm ourselves and sometimes to figure out, why did that upset me so much during that little break? Go back and ask yourself, what was it about that really bothered me? How can I say that without attacking my partner and expressing, hey, it really hurt when this happened, or I was triggered because of this thing?
That is so good, Tenitra. That is so good. I'm glad to hear you talk about this, because I know there are a lot of couples that are in this pandemic and they are living in the same space, can't leave the house with one another. We're starting to come out of it, but I know it has put a lot of pressure on couples. What are some of the things that you're seeing with couples as a result of the pandemic in terms of how this relates to communication?
Oh my gosh, yes, they have just had enough of each other, really. So seeing couples recognize things about their partner that maybe they had forgotten, or maybe didn't even realize that their partner was so fill in the blank. She's so naggy, he's so this, or she's controlling, all of those things that when we have time apart, we get to miss each other. When you're together all the time, everything starts to get on your nerves. And I think that's something with communication, we have to be able to express, hey, I love you, but I need this time. And of course, with the pandemic, we didn't always have the freedom to go out, but what we do have is the freedom to go separate. And I mean, hey, I'm going to go outside for a walk. I'm going to go in the backyard and play with the dogs for a while. I'm going to, all of those things. We don't always have to be all up on each other, but I do think it was just people start to really see a lot. And then of course, pressure from the pandemic, if there were financial issues that arose out of that pandemic, if there was a loss of job or a fear of the loss, all of those things also add pressure. We start to filter our experiences when we're communicating. So if you say, hey, did you pick up that from the store? If I'm pressured about finances, I start to think, oh, you're asking for something else that I don't feel adequate. And so those inadequacies start to rise up. And I think so much of that internal work starts to surface when you are forced to deal with life day in and day out without that break.
Wow. Like I know that for right now, a lot of couples are having to do way more than they ever would normally have to do. And I see this primarily for women of like, okay, I got to take care of the baby. I got to cook all the meals. We not even going out to dinner anymore. Like, how do you think people balance like the different strains that are put on them now without taking it personally or without it causing more conflict in their marriage?
I think it goes right back to our topic, which is communication. You have to express, hey, we are now in a different season than that we've been accustomed to. What are the new expectations? Because maybe before I could do all of those things when I had this outlet or this support. I may not have that now. So we have to renegotiate. I am a huge fan of renegotiation. How many of us work a job for 15 years and never go in and say, hey, I'm doing more than I was doing 30 years or 10 years ago. It's time for a salary increase. Well, likewise with couples, we have to say, hey, honey, that worked during pre-pandemic time. This is not feasible. Or, so I think we have to go in, and as women, we are not always taught to speak up for ourselves, but it opens the door. And I see it so many times with couples. Someone comes in with so much resentment because they didn't go back in and renegotiate and say, hey, this worked 10 years ago when the kids were this age. The kids are a different age. We need to redefine how this marriage is going to look in this season of our lives, because this season may be different and it may even be changing. And we're coming, we hope we're coming out of this pandemic. So we're going to reevaluate some things again. So we have to be open to constantly communicating about what does it look like for us right now? What will, you may not come home to a clean house every day because we've been here all day. I have a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, whatever age your child is, honey, I know I would clean the house before we left and we would go and come home to a clean house. But now little Johnny is doing a craft project and I let him because it was quiet. I had to do these things. And so we have to renegotiate the seasons of our life. And I think couples come in thinking, well, we said that 20 years ago and it should stand forever. And life changes, we change as individuals and our circumstances change. And if we're constantly communicating about that, I think it's a lot smoother.
I think that that's such a good point, that sometimes we need to renegotiate the terms of our agreement. Maybe at year one, we didn't have kids and we could just kind of come and go as we please. But now that we have these babies, we need to figure out, what are the terms now? What am I able to do that maybe I couldn't do back then? What are some of the duties that we may need to change some of these gender roles that we have established, because just doesn't work anymore. I think that's such a great point. I want to invite the people that are watching from Facebook Live. I want to invite you guys to call in, because we want to hear from you. We want to hear what questions you have about communication. This needs to be a two-way dialogue. So definitely watch us on the Roku channel. Definitely reach out in the phone number and ask your questions. Ask your questions. So today we are talking about communication. We are going to go to break and we'll be right back.
Into small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you gonna find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. May be able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
Welcome back, everybody. I am Dr. Lewis. I'm talking to the one, the only Tanisha Buffington, who is a licensed therapist, here to give us some great tips on how we can communicate better in our relationships. We want you guys to thrive in your marriages. We want you to not just survive, but we want you to flourish in your marriages. So, Tanisha, let's talk a little bit about why do you think that couples don't communicate?
So it's several reasons. I think the first reason is they don't know how. Like that's not something that we're taught in school. We're taught to add, subtract, multiply, spell. We're not really taught how to be effective communicators in our everyday life. And if you did not see that modeled with effective communication in your home, we tend to repeat the same cycles that we've seen all the time. So if dad shut down, that's what I do. I shut down. Or if mom, would go off and just start screaming, that's what I do. And so we often repeat those same cycles. And then we marry someone who may come from a very different background. And so we have all of these differing styles, and we never stop and say, okay, this no longer works. And maybe it never worked. How do we get together and figure out what works for us? So the first thing I think is the lack of skill. And the second thing I think is a fear of rejection. Communication, real, true, what I say good communication is, it requires some vulnerability. And so there's that fear of, if I tell you, I don't like something, are you going to leave me? Am I going to make you upset? If I tell you that I'm afraid, are you going to say, especially a man, if a man says I'm afraid of something, is he going to get judged? So those insecurities start to rise up. And if we don't actually do the work to do that internal, why do I do what I do? Why did that trigger me? Why did that set me off? If we don't do that internal work, we're afraid to be open with our partner because we don't know how they're going to receive that.
That's a good point. Now, I see we have a caller coming in. What is our question, caller? Do we have a caller? All right. Well, we got plenty to talk about. We have plenty to talk about. When our caller is ready, then we will go to our caller. So Tanisha, one of the things that I like that you said is that sometimes we are afraid, like we're afraid of being vulnerable. I know a lot of gender roles suggest that men can't really express their feelings. Like it's not okay to cry as a man. But what do you say to that man out there who's feeling like, I miss the intimacy. I want to know that you desire me and I'm not feeling desirable. Like I'm doing all the initiating. Like how does a man start the process of feeling comfortable expressing a little bit of vulnerability?
Honestly, I think people don't have enough conversations about the conversation, if that makes any sense at all. And what I mean is, sometimes rather than saying, especially if you're afraid, you don't know how your partner is going to communicate or receive what you're saying. People say, well, just tell them. Well, if I'm afraid, there's a reason I didn't just tell them. So I think the big thing is to be able to say, and I see our callers ready, so I'll make this quick. I think the big thing is to be able to say, hey, how would you feel if I ever shared really sensitive things that I'm afraid of? How would you go about that? Would you be open to us being vulnerable with each other? And just ask those questions, really put it out there, not, hey, I'm wondering how we would discuss this topic if it came up. And I think being clear and direct about that is important.
I love it. Let's hear from our caller.
Hello?
Hi,
How you doing? Look, I follow you a lot on your Facebook page, and I've got a question on communication.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, we've been locked in together and everything, and, we start to talk, and then it turned into an argument, and what I realize is that, when we're arguing, I'm trying to get to the point, but it seems like my wife is just trying to win the argument. And I'm at my wit's end. I mean, I can't get in a word edgewise. And then it goes from the original point back to the dog, my mother, the tire on the car. I mean, what do I do?
So that's a great question. I think a lot of people come into conversations with the idea of winning an argument. And if we let go of that idea that this is a conversation to be won or lost, I think we already get ahead of a lot of the problem. So having an attitude of, let me understand, it sounds like your wife is a bigger talker or has more words than you do, which is not uncommon for men and women at all. We have a lot of words, we're wordy people. But I would say trying to understand her. So literally when she's talking, paraphrase what you heard her say and try to see if you're understanding her perspective.
I can't understand it because you're going into 14 different conversations.
So it may be that you recognize when she goes to another place, you actually say, I want to hear that, but let's focus on this one topic first. So you kind of you'll be almost the what do you call it, umpire of this game, if you will. Hey, that's important and I want to talk about that, but let's finish this part of the conversation first. And then after that, we can talk about that next topic, because that's definitely one of the things that gets a lot of couples off track. They want to cover every topic, or one person is throwing out every topic, and that's impossible. So you want to say, let's talk about it. And if she brings up something, you can say, let me write that down so we don't forget it. We can come back to it. That's going to let her feel like you are not just dismissing her and that you genuinely want to hear what she's saying, but you also want to make sure that you kind of keep things on a one path. Hey, let's talk about this. Let's resolve this particular issue. And then, hey, I already wrote it down. We're not going to forget it. Then we'll talk about the trash. But right now, let's talk about making up the bed. Does that make sense or answer your question?
Well, a little bit. I mean, I just want to get to the point. I mean, yeah.
Dr. Lewis, any ideas from you?
I definitely understand you, sir, of you wanting to get to the point. And as Ms. Buffington mentioned, as women, we can get a little long-winded. We have a long memory. We can dig back to 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We got a running tab.
Yeah, she's still talking about the wedding cake. It's been 22 years.
So let me start by saying I understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. I get that. You know, we're couples therapists, so we see this every week, that, you know, this dynamic. And so I want you to know that first, you're not alone. This is a common thing that comes up. And then two, I want you to, I think Tanisha has some really great feedback, which is like, let's focus on this one thing. I definitely want to hear your other concerns, but let's focus on this first. And when you write things down, it's going to help your wife feel like, okay, I matter to you. What I'm saying matters to you. Like, you just is feeling a little bit overwhelmed. But if we focus on this, then maybe we can gain some more momentum on the other areas. So I think that's a really great strategy.
Okay, look, I'm gonna try it. You on every Friday?
We definitely will be back, and we would like to hear back from you after you have put this in place this week, sir. We want a report from you, okay?
I'm gonna call back, because if I can't get in a word, hey, I might as well go on and sleep with the dog or something.
Wait a minute now. We're not putting you in the doghouse this early. We just had this our first conversation, so we're not putting you in.
Look, the dog don't talk back as fast.
Now, let me ask you, would she be open to some couples therapy?
Right now, I don't think she's open to anything except for what she wants.
Because there are certain techniques that you can teach partners to improve the listening skills. And it sounds like that would be really beneficial. There's a technique that I teach couples, and it's called the speaker listener technique. And it allows the listener to actually have to be quiet and listen to what their partner is saying. And so that's not the only skill. There are tons of skills out there that a couples therapist could help you with. And so that may be a place where you can go and say, hey, let's just learn a few skills to improve our communication. You said you guys have been together for a long time, so I'm sure there's a lot of love there. But again, helping teach those skills would be very beneficial. So I would even recommend looking into some possible couples counseling.
Well, just like you said in the beginning, she's all defensive. I mean, it's like I'm with a linebacker. You can't get to anything because of the defense strategy.
I get it, sir. I understand. It is not easy when you're trying to talk and you feel like you're being railroaded with everything you've ever done that was wrong. That cannot be easy. But
Yeah.
Tanisha's point, I think it could be beneficial to get in couples therapy. But I do want you to be mindful of how you approach the conversation about couples
Yeah.
therapy. Because if you come in and say, we need some help for you, we need somebody to help fix you, then she's going to shut down. She's going to get defensive and she's not going to be open to the process. But if you approach it
She
more
gets
like,
defensive when I say good morning. What you mean good morning? It ain't good. I'm just saying good morning.
yeah, couples therapy is definitely the way to go. I don't want you trying to figure this out on your
Right.
own. And how I would frame it is I would say, I want us to be better, babe. I want to learn how I can love you better because I may be doing something that's triggering you.
Right.
And so I think couples therapy can just help us overall grow. I think that'll give you a lot more success than if you come in saying like, well, we need to fix your problem with communication. You feel what I'm saying?
No, I think you're right. I am probably doing something wrong. It's probably breathing.
You are funny. Did anybody ever tell you you should be a comedian?
No, but I used to work with some guys back down at the dock and everything, and you catch on a few jokes here and there.
Well,
Okay,
I'm just not good at
I'm gonna find you on Roku.
Yes, follow us on Roku.
Yeah.
Make sure you are calling in next week because we want to answer your questions. We want to make sure you gain some momentum. Now, before we let you go, what action are you committed to taking from our call today?
What?
What action are you committed to taking from our call today?
I'm gonna say, honey, I hear you. I'm gonna write down a list, and we're gonna go back to the one. I might even have to throw some raw meat on the floor first. But I'm committed.
Tanisha, any other main takeaways, action items that you think he could use this week?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I hear exactly what you're saying, but I'm writing it down. This is not the topic in which we're discussing, and we're going to come right back to that after we resolve this one here. And then I'm going to, understand that, she's a woman and long-winded and long memory. And I'm going to apologize for the wedding cake. And then we're going to hopefully get to some better times. But most of all, I'm going to have her watch this on Roku. And then we're going to see what we can do to make it better.
Very
good.
Very
That's
good.
Oh, I did good.
You did a great
well.
job. That was an excellent recap, sir.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm gonna post something in your Facebook page. I really like this show.
Oh,
Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Okay, you have a good day, okay? All right, so that was a very good dialogue, right, Tanisha? Don't
Very
you see
good.
these issues come up sometimes with couples where the woman has a lot to say, the man is like, whoa, I'm being railroaded. Slow down, baby.
I think it's just depending, and it's not always women. Sometimes it's the man who's constantly wanting to talk, and you just have to be able to recognize your partner is so different from you. And at some point, they probably showed you that before you got married. What was it that you were able to, what did you like about that before? And maybe remembering the things that you fell in love with your partner for. Over time, we tend to start forgetting about those positive things. And if we don't go back and, take that, we can get discouraged.
That is a great point. So guys, we are going to go to break. We will be back. And when we come back, we will discuss some more key strategies on how you can resolve conflict.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done.
Shalem. Yitkadal v'yitkedash shmei Rabbah. V'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله.
Our often repeated prayers,
Although we may be different,
yet similar.
as we reach out to our Creator,
we offer all praise.
And we seek forgiveness.
we ask for peace in our hearts, in our minds, and in our spirits. Amen.
All right, we have a caller that has called in. What is your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Well, and I also want to invite other callers to call in. Make sure that you use the number and call in, ask your question. You have two couples therapists here to answer your questions.
Hi,
What-
I'm listening to the show, and I was wondering what I can do to get my husband to talk. I mean, he talks to me, but he doesn't get involved in conversation. It could be about something as simple as what's for dinner, or what does he want for dinner. That's a question he never answers. But also, when we're talking about vacation, like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? I want to discuss it, and he just wants to buy the ticket. So what can I do to get him to have a conversation?
Tanisha,
So-
what do you think?
The first thing I would ask is that a part of his personality? Is he just a quiet person all the time, or is it just at home that you're seeing that behavior?
I see him talking. I mean, he talks to his friends and he talks to other people. We can talk about politics or, something, a big issue, but just regular life stuff, having a conversation is really tough.
Yeah. Okay. So a part of it sounds like he possibly may be an introvert. Introverts love deep conversation. They don't want to talk about small talk. So what's for dinner is just not something he's interested in conversing about. Now, the other part, though, is for you, I would say, is to make sure that as you're communicating, that there is no specific tone or judgment or, something that could be coming across as adding extra pressure or anything like that. And then just, talking to him about, hey, I like to talk. What are some things, or listening to him when he does talk, going with that conversation, because I think we can create an atmosphere in which people feel really open and comfortable. And then we can create atmospheres where people feel like they're judged. And I'm not saying that you're doing any of those things, but just be mindful. Did I have a tone, or is there a way that I could open this atmosphere up? And some of that is by asking open-ended questions, asking, questions about things that he's interested in, paraphrasing when he does say something to show that you're interested in the things that he's interested in. Those are a couple things that I think could help, that open-ended questions, because if you ask yes or no questions to someone who's not a big talker. They will give you just that, and the conversation will end. So asking those questions that are a little bit more open may help him to broaden that.
Okay, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Dr.
Thank
Lewis,
you.
any ideas?
Yeah, I would say also focusing in on the positive. Like sometimes, like when you say, like, you don't never want to talk to me. Like we always talking about, like if you come across like that, then he shuts down. And versus if you say like, babe, I've really been thinking about our vacation and I'm thinking about going to Bora Bora. What do you think? Like throw some of your ideas out there. I think having like a positive demeanor can also help. And if there are certain areas that you definitely want to talk about, there may be other people in your life that can be that support. I think sometimes like in our culture, like we can get caught up in like our spouse should be our everything. Like everything that I'm dealing with, you should be able to help me with it, solve it, support me in it. And the reality is like we need a support system. And so that might include friends, that might include family members. And so I would say definitely consider building your support system, and then also frame it from the positive and explore some of the areas that you know that he is interested in. There's an app that I want to share with you. It's called the Card Deck app. It's by John Gottman. Gottman is spelled Gottman. So if you go to the app section of your phone and you download that app, there are lots of amazing conversation starters that I think could help.
Okay, thank you. What's the name of the app again? I'm writing it down.
It's called the Card, C-A-R-D, Deck, like I have a deck of cards, D-E-C-K, and you'll see it's 2 hearts. Card Deck app, and it's by John Gottman.
And I'm going to just piggyback off of what Dr. Lewis said about that building the support system. We said earlier in the conversation about how women tend to have a lot of words, and oftentimes men they have reached their capacity and, we still have a lot to say. And so it is important that we build that support system so that we've already said a lot of the things that we need to say, and we've processed it with our girlfriends, and we've laughed and we've joked, and then you can kind of meet your partner where they are. So I think that's really important.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate your support.
Now write us back and tell us like how it went, how do you use the app, and keep us posted.
I will. I definitely will. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good rest of the day. We have any other questions? All right, guys, we want to invite you to definitely check out the Roku channel. And if any questions come up, if you have just joined us, then definitely use the call-in number for your questions. So we are going to go into conflict. So a couple has had a fight. Maybe they're stonewalling, they shut down, and they want to get back over it. Like they want to get back to the loving, they want to get back to the like fun, but they don't know how. What advice would you give to that couple, Tenitria?
In order to move past stuck, you have to move. And what that means is typically when we are in that really conflictual place, and trust me, we have been there. If you've been in a relationship, you have been at the place where you really want to stay in your place of kind of self-righteous indignation, I'm right, he's wrong kind of thing. What I think really is important, I actually did a Facebook Live yesterday in the group, Black Marriage Matters group. I think it's so important that we can say, I had to probably have a part in this breakdown. So let me take responsibility for maybe my part in the breakdown. We're not saying that you should take responsibility for the whole thing, but definitely, hey, I had a negative tone when we were talking and I apologize for that. Or, hey, I was not listening. I was interrupting you. That was rude. I apologize. So I think the first step is really being able to look at yourself and say, what was my role in this breakdown? I'm not going to take all the responsibility because we don't like to do that. But, I can take responsibility for this part, and I'm going to go to my partner and apologize for that. That's one step. I think the other thing is to just be honest, and we can just say, and this is going to be vulnerable, but just like, I miss you. I don't like when we are in this space where we're not talking. And typically your partner, they don't like that either. They want to get back to the love and the hugging and the kissing and all of that as well. So, but again, I think sometimes you have to know who you're dealing with. Some people deal specifically through word. I need to hear this face to face. It may be that you say, I'm going to send a text and say, I miss you. Can we talk? You know, just something to kind of break the ice. If you have someone who's very strong-willed, you have to know who you're dealing with again, and it may have to be a soft lead-in, or it may have to be a, I'm sorry, let's talk about this. So I do think recognizing how your partner responds. There is a quiz called many people have heard about the love languages, but they've not heard about the apology languages. That's a great place to go. It's in the same website. If you go to the 5 love languages, what's the guy's name? Gary Chapman.
Gary Chapman. Mm-hmm.
But the 5 love languages, he also has 5 apology languages. You and your spouse can take that quiz, learn how your spouse needs to be apologized to, so that you can start to break that ice a lot easier. Some people need to hear the actual words, I'm sorry. Some people need you to say, it will never happen again. Here's the plan to ensure that it won't happen again. But I think that's a great place to just learn more about your partner and how you can start to break that tension.
Really, really great tips. I think that it's something about hearing your partner validate you and acknowledge, I handled that wrong, babe. I'm sorry. The way I spoke to you, I was dealing with stress from work and I took it out on you, and that's not right. And I love what you said about Gary Chapman, because for some people, they need some accountability. Like they need some accountability and something that the person is going to do differently. And I love that you said that it's different for everybody. For everyone, it's not going to be the same type of apology that they need. But that acknowledgement helps. And sometimes it's not like I'm 100% responsible for all the problems in our marriage, but I could take this slice of the pie and I could say, This is what I brought. This is what I could have handled differently. All right, guys, we are going to take a break and we will be back shortly.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah.
Our often repeated prayers,
although we may be different,
yet similar.
As we reach out to our Creator,
we offer all praise.
And we seek forgiveness.
We ask for peace in our hearts, in our minds, and in our spirits. Amen.
Welcome back to Couples Therapy. I am so excited to have had this conversation with Tenitra. Tenitra, you do some amazing work in the world. You transform lives. I hear clients say all the time about the powerful impact that you are having on their lives. Can you tell the people a little bit about your background?
Sure. I have a master's degree in counseling. So I'm a licensed professional counselor. I received my degree from the University of Arkansas. And then I have a postmaster's certificate in marriage and family therapy, which is definitely what we're talking about today, focusing in on those couples, getting insight of how to communicate, how to effectively work through all types of issues that come when you are married to another individual. So that's my background. I've been working in the field over 13 years, and I enjoy it so much.
I think, it's truly an honor to be able to do the type of work that you
Mhm.
love to do. Tanisha, I know that you are a speaker as well. Can you talk a little bit about what you speak about? Because I'm pretty sure that there are people out there that need some of you in their life.
So yes, I love speaking to couples and to speaking to groups and teaching communication skills. I actually created a course called Communication Essentials 2 or 3 years ago, and that's something that I enjoy teaching. And it is some of the stuff that we've talked about, how to implement those things. And so that's one of the areas I like to talk. When we're talking individuals, I like to talk about improving self-esteem, confidence, walking in your I guess your individuality, but also walking in that confidence and being who we were created to be. So that's another area. And then of course, just dealing with, as mental health professionals, we see in couples, we see people come in and one person may be depressed, one person may be anxious, and they don't want to acknowledge those things sometimes to their partner. And so another topic that I really like to communicate about is tearing down the stigma of mental health issues in our community, because we don't want people not to get the help because they think something's wrong with them. And even in couples therapy, it's important for us to be able to say, there is nothing wrong with the couple getting therapy. In fact, we're in the group Black Marriage Matters. And a lot of times people will say, you don't need to go get anybody in your business, or you don't need that. Or listen, if you want to have a healthy marriage, you want to do the things that will make it healthy. If you're sick in your body, you go to a doctor. If your marriage has some issues, go to someone who is trained, who can give you some insight and some wisdom, because that's what we need. We want these marriages to last, to be beautiful, to be amazing. And that does not happen by accident. Success leaves clues. So follow the clues and get some help.
Well said. I mean, I know I see my therapist every week and she is amazing.
Right.
And I love what you said, Tanisha, about like, you don't have to be crazy to see a therapist. Like, that's how you keep yourself
From
able
being
to manage all right, able to not stay crazy, is by like making sure you have the type of support that you need. So if you are a part of a church or organization and you know that they need this type of training, then definitely reach out to Tanisha. What would be the best place for people to book you?
They can, if they're looking for some couples therapy, we work with Atlanta Couple Therapy, and that phone number is 404-496-8070. And you can also call and get scheduled. And if this for something speaking, it's Tenitria@gmail.com, or you can look at my website, which is TenitriaBuffington.com.
All right, guys, make sure that you connect with Tanisha. She is amazing at what she does. And if you want to connect with me, you can go to afteridoacademy.com. We have some amazing trainings inside of that portal to serve you, to support you, to help you grow and thrive in your marriage. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Let's give it up for our guest speaker.